So most of the businesses think accessibility is a kind of nice to have thing, something that you do later when you have time, budget, and the legal reason. But what if accessibility is actually a growth advantage, a storytelling advantage, and a leadership advantage? And what if the real unlock is not the perfection, but it's the practical changes that you can start this week? So, hey, dear listeners, welcome back to another powerful episode of Mind Meets Machine, where we explore how humans and technology can work better together with more clarity and less noise. I'm your host, Avik, and today I'm joined by a lovely guest. Please welcome Maxwell Ivey. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and I look forward to us having a great conversation.
Exactly. And I'm really happy that you joined us today. And before we delve deep into the discussion today, I'll quickly love to introduce you with all the listeners. Dear listeners, Maxwell is known as, obviously, I'll be calling him Max, but he is known around the world as the blind blogger, an accessibility expert, and the long-time online entrepreneur who helps business owners understand what accessibility really does for the growth and inclusion. And in this episode, we are getting practical, like what accessibility actually means and why it matters beyond the compliance, and how to build it into your control and in your content, your products, and your mindset without getting overwhelmed. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again. So Max, before we get into kind of tactical thing, I'm really very curious that when you look back 2007, teaching yourself HTML just to get online, what do you remember? Like most about that early season of figuring it out?
I remember thinking that if I hadn't absolutely needed to do it, I would have never done it. I think that if I had seen other potential within myself to do other types of things as a way of replacing the income from our carnival, which had gone out of business after my dad's death, between replacing that with helping people sell their used equipment or doing other things, I would have done other things. And, if I could have done what I wanted to do without building a website, without having to teach myself to code HTML, I would have done that. But at that point in my journey, honestly, didn't see myself as capable. And I felt like I only had one way forward. And one of the great things about feeling like you don't have a choice, even if that's wrong, even if you find out later that you were misinformed about yourself, it causes you to do things that you don't want to do, that you don't enjoy doing. One of the things it taught me is that there are solutions around us, that all the time there are many solutions to whatever problem or challenge we're facing. The difficulty for most people is that they have the option of deciding not to go forward. And so if the only options are things that require you to, like I say, if they're things that are dirty, greasy, or will make you look silly doing them, most people will choose not to do them. So I was highly motivated because I felt like I only had one way forward. In order to do that, I had to figure out a way to get online. And back then, there were three options. There was WYSIWYG, which stands for what you see is what you get, which obviously wouldn't have worked for me. There
Mhm.
was coding your own website, and there was paying somebody else to build a website. Most of y'all are not familiar with this, but in the very early days online, people were charging thousands of dollars to build 4 and 5 page websites. So
Yeah.
that was not an option for me. So I went with what was available to me. And, after I figured out how to build a simple website, then people said I had to have a blog. So I did that. And then through the blog, I rediscovered my love of writing and storytelling. But then I also had to figure out how to recruit clients and set fees and write copy and eventually social media, building an email list, recording videos and audio. And so over, the first 4 or 5 years I was online when I was focused solely on selling other people's used amusement park and carnival equipment, was constantly facing new challenges, new obstacles, most of which there were not accessible.
Mm.
Most of the time, the people who were responsible for those companies were not interested in making them accessible. So, you had to figure it out or find other people who had figured it out. And of course, I did reach out to a lot of companies directly over the years, and some of them were willing to either make small changes or to do things for me so that I could accomplish my goal. I think that's one of the things that's highly underrated about accessibility is there is a place for done for you and done with you along with do it yourself when it comes to accessibility for the visitors of your online presence. So I just remember thinking everything was really hard. It was some every day there was something new I had to figure out. But the other thing is it was never boring. There was always a new challenge, a new experience, a new adventure. And of course, all of that led to people seeing me as an inspirational leader and asking me to share more about being a blind entrepreneur. And then I'm like, okay, I need a website because the people in the amusement industry are not going to want to hear about the more personal aspects. It's a very tight mouthed industry. There's a lot of fear that competitors will take advantage of you if they have information or if you're seen to be too personable or emotional. And I asked people, what should I call it? And they said, we've been calling you the blind blogger for a couple of years now. So that's what I went with, the blindblogger.net. Now, I did not realize this until last year when a woman who works at a company that I've done some writing for AudioEye.com, which is an enterprise level accessibility company, is that back then, the reason people called me the blind blogger is most people with disabilities online were hiding their disability because they thought sharing their challenges would be stigmatized and they wouldn't find success in this new online platform that, at least in the beginning looked like it would give.
Exactly. Exactly true. Totally agree. And that's a powerful starting point because it immediately frames the accessibility as a real world friction, not the theory, right? Exactly, exactly. And also, like, a lot of people hear accessibility and think that it's only for a kind of small groups or it's only about the legal risk and something. So when you hear that, what do you want to correct first? Hmm. Correct. Hmm. Exactly. Correct. Hmm. Correct. Very truly said. Very, very truly said. And I like how you are grounding this in the outcomes and not the guilt, no fear, outcomes. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so from that perspective, like suppose if someone listening and they want to do better, but doesn't know like what inaccessible looks like. So what are the most common mistakes that you see on the websites, the content, or the podcasts? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Very true. And also, like, that's useful because it gives people a mirror. Like, let's push this a little further with a practical scenario. Like, imagine uh, a founder says that I am bootstrapping, right? And I cannot rebuild my site and I can barely keep up with the content. So, what will be the smallest set of changes that gives them the biggest accessibility win? Okay. Uh-huh. Hmm. Correct. Hmm. No, sure. Hmm. Hmm. Correct. Hmm. Yeah. Got it. Totally got it. Whew, amazing. So, and also, like for the listener who's dealing with the adversity right now and quietly thinking that I don't know if I have what it takes. So, what would you want to say them in a way that they feel that feels real and not a kind of cheesy? Oh, okay. So I'm saying, like, for a listener, suppose who is dealing with the adversity right now, and they may be thinking that I don't know if I have what it takes. So, what would you say to them? Kind of, yeah. Hmm. Amazing. That's a great discussion, I would say. And before we move, I'll quickly love to ask you where people can find you. That's definitely great. That's really great. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And before we move, I'd quickly love to say that if this episode hit you, here's your simple next move. Pick one place where people get stuck, your website, your content, your podcast, and make one improvement this week. Not perfect, but just better, right? So thanks for joining on Mind Meets Machine. And if you want more grounded conversations like this, please follow the show and share this episode with someone building a business that actually includes people. So see you next time. Thank you so much. Hey, I cannot see you. I don't know why. I cannot see you. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Yeah, it's done.